Hello, hello. Okay, let me turn off this music that is going behind here. I hope it's off. Yeah, it should be off now. Hi, Nikki.
Hi.
Hi. So I want to say hello to everyone. Hello, LinkedIn. Hello, YouTube, because we're streaming both on LinkedIn and YouTube. And of course, welcome to those watching the replay. Today, I am really, really happy to have the one and only Nicky Brown, founder of Coach to Growth, with me. And what we're going to do today is to have a chat about work addiction. And our intention is that you listening in or the replay are going to leave saying, wow, I never thought about work addiction that way. So the first I would like to ask whoever's listening in is, where are you connecting from? So personally, I'm in a very, 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 very rainy Stavanger, Norway. Nicky, what about you? Where are you?
Well, I'm actually surprisingly in a very sunny Glasgow, which we don't get to say those in Scotland very often. It's chilly, but it's sunny today, which is beautiful and rare.
Oh, well, we're celebrating that. We did have a few days last week, and it completely shifted in 12 hours. And now it's like 12 degrees and torrential rain. But anyway, I'd love to hear where all of you are connecting in. But what I want to share is a little bit about you, Nicky. So Nicky has a few awards behind her as a senior leader in big companies such as Apple and Nike. But after 20 years, she did something that I just love. She stepped out and up. And now she is an international coach, and she's blending leadership, sports, and emotional freedom. So we're going to come from that angle today. But, Nicky, there's something I really wanted to just dive straight in on about you. Let's go deep in it.
Let's go.
I have heard you say that you was hiding behind your corporate success. Basically, that corporate success was hiding your addiction to work. Can you tell us a bit about that? Because it's quite a statement.
Yeah. Like work was my drug, and it was a total blind spot for me. And I believed and was conditioned to believe that success looks like next promotion, next award, all of the stuff that many of us may believe. And I didn't even realize it was a problem. I believed I was so happy, and I would say things like, I'll be happy when I'll just work this hard until this will be the last time I do 80 hours. And what I didn't realize was I was actually using work as a form of validating that I was good enough, in a big bold statement, to say that I'm good enough to exist, right? Like I'm lovable and I'm important. Important was the big one for me. I'm important enough. And I was hiding behind the wins in a corporate life led me to believe and prove to myself that I was, which was complete BS, because the reality is I was good enough regardless of that.
Wow. Where did all this come from?
Very good question. And actually, this is the work that is really important to do if you're in a similar space, is to connect to where was this born? And it looks different for all of us. So for me, it was two places. They're both the same, but different contexts. So it was actually from all of our places are born from when we're younger, below 10 years old, right? And the younger, the better. But actually, for me, both of them were my dad. One was my dad is a total workaholic and still is. He could have retired a long time ago. He is still addicted to work and he loves it. So learning the same way that my dad taught me English as a language, he's my best friend. He raised me. He also taught me that actually, if you success looks like working and almost giving your your soul over to work, your whole identity becomes work, your whole being becomes work. So naturally, I feel that because that's a behavior that I learned. And the second piece was actually when growing up, we didn't have a lot when I was first growing up. And actually, they were some of my happiest times in reflection. They don't always feel like it in the moment, right? And then my dad started his own business and became really successful in the conventional way of measuring success. But it also meant he wasn't present anymore. And for me to get attention, and I'm obviously traumatized, I did get attention and love, but my ego started to believe that when I win an award in school or when I'm recognized for something, my dad dropped everything and was really present. So then that's where the addiction grew. Okay, well, if I just do something to this level and be the best at it, I get validation from the world. And my dad, who's my hero, then shows up and validates me as well. So I get that love that I'm craving and that attention. So those two things blended together over many years and decades, and then my corporate life and all the other uni life all started to validate what was complete BS, but I was looking for more reasons to be proven right in this. Are you okay?
Yeah, I was like, I'm not talking, so this is the problem. I'm starting to cough. I recognize this. I actually recognize it in myself. My reason to overwork it's quite interesting. Started when I was quite young. I think I was 12 or 13 when my dad made a comment to me, and it was absolutely spot on. Every time I was doing something, whether that doing knitting or mowing the lawn, I could never complete. I would be 80% knitting a jacket. I would give it to my mum. My dad said, now you're going to mow the lawn and guarantee there would be 20% left. And he said, in his very loving heart, he said, well, Rita, I guess you're one of these people that never complete anything. In that very moment, I went from that to do 120%. Because that is how I really got the recognition from my dad. It was like, oh, I must have been mistaken. So they tend to start as we are very, very young. But what I'm curious about, Nikki, is what did it look like for you? Like practically, what did this addiction of yours look like?
Yeah. Basics would be a really, really full calendar. Like importance for me. And that was my, not good enough is a big, massive umbrella. But actually there's a layer beneath that that's really unique to you. Because unless we've done all of the good work, then all of us have some version of not feeling good enough. But it's important to go a layer deeper. So for me, it was not important. And so to have a busy diary, I felt important. Big, massive umbrella. That's really unique. I can hear something.
Sorry, I needed to check something that we were actually live, and it's like we are very much live.
Yeah, so actually a very busy calendar made me feel important enough was one. I would use the language, I'll be happy when. I'll stop when I get to this level, this promotion, this award. I mentioned that at the beginning. This constant desire to win. And the example I'll give you here is my boss in the last job I had was actually sitting with me and he was doing my annual review. And he said to me, Nikki, like it was brilliant. It was the top grade. I was getting loads of recognition, both in rumination and in praise and verbal. And I stopped him and said, great, what's next? What do you need from me now? Stone-faced. And he actually said to me, and this will stay with me forever, Nikki, did you hear what I just said to you? And I'm like, yeah, great, but what now? Like that for me was a really key, like watch out for. And I laughed as I did some of this, as this move from being a blind spot to true awareness, like this, you know, incompetence. I was consciously incompetent. Okay, what do I do next with it? But that story sticks with me so clearly because he could see it and I couldn't. The other one is I was afraid to fail. I'm so attached to winning because my identity was everything was work, that then I was afraid to fail. And actually what happens is you then give too much, that you're at risk of burnout, or you're at risk of actually not setting the goals as high as your potential, because failure is not an option. And I see this so much with athletes, right? Right at the beginning, it's fun, you've got nothing to lose, but as you've built your business or you've built your athlete life up to this level, whatever sport you're in, then the stakes become higher. So you don't actually play as fast or as hard or as fun as you can, because the fall could be too high.
Yeah.
And then the last one I would say is it looks like relying on, you have a good day when you've won, so you get the recognition of smashing a goal or beating your best, or somebody else has recognized you. When those things aren't present, the world doesn't feel as good. Your world feels a little bit like, oh, who am I? What am I doing? This doesn't feel great. And then the flip side, when those things are there, you feel like you feel good enough. So that they were how it showed up for me.
What was the typical relationship with friends then? I mean, obviously working 80 hours a week, I mean, it's a lot. What about friends? Hanging out with friends?
And I've got a beautiful circle of friends, beautiful, but I was neglecting them because I was too tired. We were talking about this offline, right? That next week is too big of a week, that I'll skip this one. Or, you know, I'd get to my phone and there'd be messages or missed calls, and I'd be wiped because I've worked all day. I've been leading a big team that I've been so present with. I don't have energy left to then show up and be fully present with friends. So I would delay the call back, or I'd say, I'm not going to come to this night or this trip that you've got planned. I'll come to the next one, because next week was too big and important to not be giving my all to work. And actually, one of the first things I did when I started and took this leap of faith and started this business is I schedule my life first. And now I've got a real balance. And that doesn't always mean that every week is perfect, right? Because there's no such thing. So there is still weeks where work takes more time and space. But then there's other weeks where I take a lot more space than work. And overall, throughout the year, it balances beautifully.
Yeah.
And I'm so much more happier. I'm achieving more, working less. That is the biggest bit of the distinction is, and the biggest fear I hear, because I obviously attract workaholics to want to work with me. And I hope some of them are watching this call, because some of them said they were joining and they might chirp in and say, yes, I've gone from this to this. But actually they are achieving like 100x more in whatever capacity, because they redefine success. And I know we're going to come on to this, but you will achieve more if you do this work and actually work less. And there's so much science, and we can go into all of that. But actually, Rita, I'm curious, how did it show up for you?
Yes. There is a like here. So can you ask me the question again?
Yeah. How did it show up for you? What was your workaholic symptoms?
Oh, yeah. So my word was always, I'm so busy. I'm so proudly busy. And I would always have something in the near future that I was working on, the next trip, the next conference, the next meeting, the next, I just have to finish this report. And I remember I also had a huge circle of friends, and what I started to notice was that they invited me less and less to whatever they had. I remember one time there was going to be this reunion party, and somehow I was not even invited. And I heard about this party later on, and I was like, how could that happen? And my friend said, but what's the point? what's the point? We're inviting you all the time. There's not one slice of even a try from your end. So, well, that's all on you. It's not that we didn't think about you. We actually didn't invite you because there's no point in inviting you. I remember that was such a slap in the face. Conversation I had with my colleague who was exactly the same as me. We started to see our friend circle become diminishing. And then we made jokes about it to say, well, we have each other. We're traveling the world, we've got each other. So that's one of the things. The other thing I realized is similar to you, I have this perfect system. You know, you and I will love to work on what's the perfect system to protect our whatever dark sides. And the dark side in this case was the busy thing. I had the same as you. I was like, oh, busy. My calendar, it was allergic to have a space. I mean, it was allergic. And I even when I started my own business, I noticed this same pull. If I have not got a full calendar, I can't be a good business person. I mean, there must be something wrong. So I had to really train myself to relax and get really comfortable with space. And I had to enjoy space. But seriously, Nikki, it was detox big time. I mean, it's an addiction. I was detoxing like crazy. I was doing meditation. I was thinking like my head was spinning and my legs.
Yep, been there.
It's just crazy, right?
Been there. So actually, I want to go back to the point that you talked about with your friends, because the other thing I noticed, and not just for me, but for people that I work with, people think you've got your shit together. Sorry, I'm swearing, but well, not sorry, I did it. So actually, you create this superhero avatar that you've got the perfect job, you've got kids are great, you've got the great house, you know, you're going on these holidays. But so actually people think that you've got this superstar lifestyle where you're the most resilient person on the planet. But actually life can still knock you and you still need that support from people. You're still a human. And actually part of that is the avatar that we create as well, because there's also no space to feel. There's no space to be with all of our emotions or be knocked by what life is throwing at us. Too busy. So I'll deal with that another time. I haven't got time for it. That's another what, right?
Oh,
when
that's
actually
so
space for it, you would actually be you bounce back so much quicker and healthier.
Yeah. And so I remember, I mean, again, I've done a lot of work on myself on this. I remember this feeling of guilt. And it kind of raised up in me, and I had labeled this feeling as guilt. And my default mechanism would be, that must be a sign that I haven't done everything I'm supposed to do. So the feeling of guilt triggered me into doing even more. And more and more. And then, of course, I felt guilt with my mom, my dad, and of course, with Benjamin, I was also working kind of high intensity to have medicine for him, but it was constantly guilt. When I learned, when I started to breathe, I came so deep into my understanding my own emotions that the feeling that I had labeled from childhood as guilt, that's not what my body was telling me now. My head said, oh, you feel guilty. And I started to practice communicating with my body. And I said to my body, from my famous bathtub, that all the listeners know,
bring the bathroom.
That is the room. And I would go into the bathtub and I would hear this bull in my head. And then I would say, okay, I hear what you're saying. Now, what do you say? And the body responded very quickly. And very often the message was, I'm sick and tired of doing. So it's these kind of things that as work addicts, we're so next to the next drug. What's next? What's next? What's next? That we are not even allowing our body to detox from the adrenaline, the dopamine, the cortisol. It's this cocktail that we've created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm curious though, if you were to, like, you're working with clients, they're coming to you with these issues. What's the work you do with them? So to help them to not achieve less, but achieve more, but do less.
Mm-hmm. It's very different depending on where they're at. I always meet people where they're at and how, for me, I'm an all-in person. So whereas there's some people that prefer to do it smaller and more manageable. So I'd love to give you a little bit of flavor of both, because I love when I'm watching something like this. It's great to relate to somebody, but then it's like, and me as a hyper achiever wants to know, or an ex-hyperachiever wants to know, okay, what can I do? What can I do? And when I first start working with people, they'll say, right, what's the action? And when you say to them, the action is do nothing. How can you create more space? You can see the uncomfortableness. I remember going back to your story, the first time I learned to meditate for 20 minutes. My goodness, I was literally like, this is awful. And now I love it. And if it's not there, but it was uncomfortable. So whenever I'm working with somebody, and when meditation or being still or creating space becomes part of it, it's making them aware that, okay, it may feel like this because you've been so used to go, 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 that allow yourself space to, or maybe build up to it. So you might go all in and commit into meditation every day, or maybe start smaller. 20 minutes is a long time if you've never done it. Anyway, I digress. So how do I do it? The big root of it is to connect into self. So we often have different versions of ourselves, right? So, and a good way to check is when somebody says, hi, nice to meet you. How do you introduce yourself? Do you say, I'm Nikki, I'm a senior leader at Apple, or I do this? Do you identify your next sentence with your job? Or do you say, hi, I'm Nikki, and you might add something interesting about you that's not related to work at all, right? That for me was always a good distinction to check. But the work to start with is to actually connect to self. You might be a mom or a dad, depending on who's watching. You might be a friend, a family member, whatever your job title is. But actually, even if all of them were stripped away, you're still you. Yeah. And actually, if you can connect back to who are you without any of those identities, and that becomes your root. If you imagine a tree, like really deep roots and connect to how awesome that version of you is versus your values and your strengths. So, for me, like connection is one of my biggest values and strengths. So actually, I really, and I still practice to this day, when have I really linked to that value today? And it'll show up in all my identities as mom, as businesswoman, as friend. But it's not who I am, if that makes sense. It's not, oh, I'm a successful entrepreneur because I did this. I'm successful because of who I am. So there's some deeper work, and I can send exercises out if anybody is interested in that. But there could also be small steps. Like if that feels too big and a bit too scary at the moment, what about if you just committed a really small commitment to yourself, which is still self-love, of just take your lunch break every day. For the next 5 days, I'm going to take my lunch break that I don't even schedule anymore because I'm too busy, and that hour could be eating at my desk and doing another task. What if you didn't? What if you actually committed to going for a walk on your lunch, or changing the environment and just sitting with yourself and allowing yourself time to enjoy your food, rest? Every athlete knows that they need time to train, be in competition, but also rest and recover, and time for fun as well.
It's I love this work on breaking it down to small pieces. Again, yeah, like you, I also work with clients in this field, and I think so. When I think about the field that I'm in, women who are working on big missions, really solve some of the greatest challenges we're having on the planet. Sometimes their problem can be that the mission takes everything. Like they're on a mission, they have no time for food, for this, for that, for friends, because the world is on fire. So it's like I need to. And one thing that I did learn from my situation with being on a mission for my son, Benjamin, was that if I did not actually look after myself, I wouldn't be a good contributing part to being on this mission and see a vision come to life. So some of the work that I do with my clients is to talk about what are you fueling your body with? Are you looking after yourself? Do you have nuts with you? So at least you can ensure that you have something to fuel with. Because that is another thing I see as almost every single client are not looking after themselves when it comes to what they eat. Yeah.
100%. But actually, Rita, I would go like if we think about when is the best time we have our best ideas. When you were a workaholic, when was that for you? When you were able to do your best work, when was it? Because it wasn't when you had a busy diary.
No, my best work happened during holiday.
Right. So for me, it's when I'm in the, or not so much now, but back then, and I still get my best ideas in the shower. But certainly in my corporate life, I'd be on holiday, sitting, enjoying the beach and hearing the waves, maybe been for a walk or a swim, maybe had a mojito or two. And then I'd be like, boom. And what have we done? We've allowed our brain space and our body time to rest and recover. But actually, imagine you were able to bring that into every day, because it is a choice. So you're right. It's the what we consume from a food. It's how we rest. You can't get a good night's sleep if you work right up until bedtime, right? It's scientifically proven. But also when you create space every single day, you will have better ideas. You'll be able to problem solve at a bigger level. So even for your mission-driven clients, imagine they could solve their mission with more ease if only they really invested into daily time for rest and daily time for joy, like things that really make them laugh, belly laugh. We don't belly laugh enough as adults consistently enough. And it is, again, when we open the right side of our brain open.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's so true. Bringing actually more fun and more space into life really increase talk about ideas, productivity, and all these things. I had a client of mine. She's in New York now on holiday, and she sent me a WhatsApp message with a picture from the biggest library in New York, and she saw this. There was this, I don't know, multiple books about the most powerful women in the world and the impact they've created, and she had this big insight, of course, work related. She sent it to me, but we're laughing about it because it's not to hold back. It's not like say, how dare you be creative when you're on a holiday? It doesn't matter, but it's to give ourselves the understanding that when I have space, it comes. So why am I so scared to creating a natural space on a daily basis to allow these things to come? So you can call it maybe download time, and you're sitting there for 20 minutes, and maybe you just look out the window and suddenly you have that boom, a big idea that's very important for the work that you do.
Yeah, it's important not to become attached to that time solving a problem as well, because then you're attached and forcing it, and creativity doesn't happen like that. But if you even if you've got a big problem that's, to some degree doesn't feel right, whether it's personal or professional, if you just put it in your conscious and leave it sitting there unattached, and then have this space. And I would suggest moving your body as well. If you're able, go for a walk, do an exercise class, whatever it brings you joy in, moving the body, getting out in nature, all again fueling your body in a really healthy way. It will happen, but you've got to be patient with when it happens, because if it's like, right, I've got 20 minutes and I'm going to solve that problem now, I'm going to look out the window, then it's not realistically, it's not going to happen. It's whereas actually you can, and like you're on holiday, like your client, and it just comes to you, and it feels like you've solved the world in that moment.
Yeah, it is so true. Last year,
no, sorry, you go.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that last year I had quite a lot of time off because I was down being sick, but I also so I was literally down 2 months, and I decided to add another month to it. So I was literally 3 months kind of off work. And the biggest ideas that has been implemented this year has come as a result of actually even being sick, but also having a full month where I was just like, I was completely detoxing on all electronics and everything. For me, that was important, and also being in nature. But this is so cool. I love this conversation. And I know that many of those listening in are very busy people. So when I drive this conversation,
yeah, I know there's one last bit that actually links to what you are sharing there that I want to, as we're wrapping up, to finish with. And actually, I want to celebrate you, first of all, because obviously knowing you off the lives, this time off that you've gifted yourself with and created as part of your daily rituals now, I'm seeing what you're doing in the background in all areas of your life, that you've redefined success. And that's, well, there's two, I'm going to be cheeky, there's two things. When you do this work, you achieve more, and I promise you that, and you've seen that from your own evidence. But actually success is redefined because you start to redefine success as calm, inner peace, and though confidence, like self-worth, and that actually fuels the performance as well, right? So I want to put that. The bit that you touched on is this fear. What I often see is people say, and it's because of what they've been taught to believe, and they've also proven true for themselves. What if I slow down and I achieve less, or I fail? But actually, the famous quote, what if you fly? And actually, that's a beautiful way for us to finish, because you've proven that, I've proven that. There's hundreds of clients that have tried this other way, and actually they're flying, like 100x flying. And most importantly, they've got a balance and they're happy and present to life. And that's success.
Yeah, it's so true. And does it mean that it is one fix to do it? No, it's not. I mean, you have done it for years. I've done it for years. It's an ongoing thing. When we have an odd defaulting often to being work addicts, it's still there. It still gives a lot of wow. At least for me, it's like, oh, this is a rush. This is great. And then it's like, I'm more aware when it suddenly take over, go overboard. It can happen today as well. Like I work as if I'm not going to be in the office tomorrow, because that was a default mechanism when Benjamin was sick. And I'm finding myself sometimes doing this exactly the same thing, like thinking, what happened now, Rita? What are you doing? But the good thing is when we're doing this inner work, when we're receiving support. I mean, I have, like you, we have multiple coaches that we're working with all the time. We're in communities because it's an ongoing thing. So yeah, don't think that it's going to be a quick fix. And for those who are on that journey and working with yourselves, know that this is part of our lives that we do on a constant basis. Where can they get hold of you, Nicky?
LinkedIn is the best place. So I'm obviously live. My profile is up here. Or you can contact me via my website, which is coachtogrowth.com.
Yeah. I love the website, by the way. It's a great new website.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. It's been a privilege, actually, and I'm truly grateful.
Oh, likewise. Nicky and I are off to Canada soon, so we're gonna have some downtime and some busy time. Anyway, everyone, take care and see you in a month's time.
Take
Bye.
care.